And at the same time, we get all this too. They're going on about the welfare state, but the biggest welfare goes to the corporations. That's where the real welfare state is. We just bailed out the banks, for goodness sake. These were cash gifts. They were complete gifts to them. Billions and trillions of bucks across the planet. And they don't have to pay that back. Eh? And now they're all giving themselves, in no time at all, billions of dollars in bonuses at the end of the year. Now here's an article here. It says, to us it's an obscure shift of tax law. To the city, that's the city of London, the banking city, the square mile. It's the heist of the century. This is in The Guardian. It says, I would love to see tax reductions, David Cameron told the Sunday Telegraph at the weekend, but when you're borrowing 11% of your GDP, it's not possible to make significant net tax cuts. It just isn't. Then it says, oh no, then how come he's planning the biggest and crudest corporate tax cut in living memory? If you heard nothing of it, you're in good company. The obscure adjustments the government is planning to the tax acts of 1988 and 2009 have been missed by almost everyone and are anyway almost impossible to understand without expert help. And it's true, isn't it? They make everything very complicated to make you think, well, only experts understand this. When that happens, you know you've been ripped off. Something so simple should stay simple. It says, but as soon as you grasp the implications, you realize that a kind of corporate coup d'etat is taking place. Like the dismantling of the National Health Service and the sale of public forests, no one voted for this measure as it wasn't in the manifestos. While Cameron insists that he occupies the centre ground of British politics, that he shares the burdens and feels their pain, he's been quietly plotting with banks and businesses to engineer the greatest transfer of wealth from the poor and middle class to the ultra-rich that this country has seen in a century. The latest heist has been explained to me by the former tax inspector, now a private-eye journalist, Richard Brooks, and current senior tax staff who can't be named. Here's how it works. At the moment, tax law ensures that companies based here with branches in other countries don't get taxed twice on the same money. They have to pay only the difference between our rate and that of the other country. If, for example, Dirty Oil PLC pays 10% corporate tax on its profits in Oblivia, this is just, make up, then shifts the company over here, it should pay a further 18% in the UK to match a rate of 28%. But under the new proposals, companies will pay nothing at all in this country on money made by their foreign branches. And that's what free trade's all about, folks. It's not for you, believe you me. Foreign means anywhere. If these proposals go ahead, the UK will only be the second country in the world to allow money that's passed through tax havens to remain untaxed when it gets here. The other is Switzerland. The exemption applies solely to large and medium companies. It's not available for smaller firms, and that's what free trade's all about, just getting the small guys out the way so there's no competition. So the authorized big internationals have the field to themselves. The government says it expects large financial services companies to make the greatest use of the exemption regime. The main beneficiaries, in other words, will be the banks, the big banks, the big banks, the ones that handle billions per day. It goes in London, the city of London. Then it goes on to explain more of this and how the con game works. But that's really how it is, isn't it? It's always been that way. And in the States, the same day comes out, rich take from the poor as U.S. subsidy law funds luxury hotels. Renovation at the Blackstone Hotel in Chicago qualified for a federal subsidy due to the neighborhood's 26% poverty rate. It says the landmark Blackstone Hotel in downtown Chicago, which has hosted 12 U.S. presidents, opened in 2008 after a 2-year, $116 million renovation. Inside the art structure, built in 1910, buffed marble staircases, Greek guests spending up to $699 a night for rooms with views of Lake Michigan. What's surprising isn't the opulent makeover, it's how the project was financed. The work was subsidized by a federal development program intended to help poor communities. Doesn't that smack of the same thing the Queen of England was doing when she went into the poverty laws that were meant to help the poor in Britain to get money to heat our palaces? It says the biggest beneficiary of taxpayer help for the Blackstone revamp was Prudential Financial Inc., the second largest U.S. life insurer. The company got $15.6 million in tax credits from the U.S. Department of the Treasury for helping to fund the project, according to Chicago City Records. Bloomberg Markets magazine reports in its March issue. JP Morgan Chase & Company, the second largest U.S. bank by assets, also took in money by serving as a lender and the monitor of Blackstone construction financing, City Records shows. See how they got all worked out together, all this big clique at the top. Since 2003, some of the world's biggest financial companies, including Goldman Sachs Group Inc., U.S. Bancorp, JP Morgan Chase, and Prudential, have taken advantage of a federal subsidy that will cost taxpayers $10.1 billion, and most of the public has never heard of it. Investors have used the program called New Markets Tax Credits to help build more than 300 upscale projects, including hotels, condominiums, office buildings, and a car museum on streets far from poverty, according to Treasury Department records released through a Federal Freedom of Information Act request. And on and it goes. It's just, it's the same thing everywhere else in France and in Britain too. In Britain, you've got all these lords who pass the bills for the wind farms, and they make sure that their buddies in the same organization, that's called government, make sure that they get the wind farms put on their land, and they can rake in up to $10,000 each per month on them, paid by the taxpayer. Not a bad deal, eh? Not a bad deal how this wonderful open democracy works. It's amazing how these same characters that do all the stealing and cheating use the term democracy when they want to screw more out of you, and get the next step of their plan through. Isn't that wonderful? It's like the U.S. Constitution. These guys trash it amongst themselves. It's been reported in many newspapers what the politicians have said about the Constitution. Even Bush Junior derided it too. That piece of paper, he says, But when they want to use some of it to further something they want for themselves, out it comes. All dusted off. Amazing. It's just amazing. I'm also going to put some more bills up that are going through Parliament in the UK, and to do with giving more powers to supposedly local councils, deregulating it from the centralized government. And of course, under the guise of how more folk will have more say in their housing in their area and what happens in their area, it's well understood that the local councils that will run it's going to get these massive cash grants. Where you see all this disappearing into pockets. It's all run by local businesses. It's not the people. That's where it's going to go. And they're utterly corrupt. Also, an article I put up tonight, too, is from my website. Communist Capitalism Tightens Grip of the Economic Union for World State Model. That's got awfully good information on the European Council of Foreign Relations. That's the European branch for the whole of Europe now, from the Council on Foreign Relations. All the top politicians are members. George Soros was the guy who started it up. He's the head of it. This is your wonderful new democracy. I'll put that up too. And you can go through some of the history of these characters. The Rockefellers are mentioned in here, CFR, and lots of documentation, lots of links to official stuff you can check out for yourself.